Welcome back to A Little Bit of Cheese, your bite-sized Wisconsin sports podcast. I'm your host, Cody Depius. I want to thank you for being here with us once again today. It is Friday, the 13th, December 13th, 2024. So we've got some big news coming in today as the Milwaukee Brewers have officially traded closer Devin Williams to the New York Yankees. In return, the Brewers received starting pitcher Nestor Cortez and minor league infielder Caleb Durbin. My initial thoughts on this trade, I think this is positive. I talked about it a little bit earlier, a couple of shows a couple of weeks ago, but I knew the Brewers were going to trade Devin Williams. They only had him available for this year, this upcoming 2025 season, and we knew that they weren't going to bring out the money to go and sign him to a long-term deal after the fact. This is similar to what they did to Josh Hader and similar to what they did with Corbin Burns. But the return here, I think, for Devin Williams and the fact that he's coming off of a season where he was injured, I think this is a pretty solid return. They receive Nestor Cortez, who is a veteran major league starting pitcher who actually, ironically, also gave up a pretty big home run in the playoffs last year's actually in Game 1 of the World Series. If everyone remembers Freddie Freeman's walk-off grand slam, the pitcher for that was Nestor Cortez. He probably shouldn't have been brought in on that situation, but he was, and he was on the wrong side of history in that sense. But a guy who gave the Yankees 174 regular season innings last year to the tune of a 3.77 ERA. His peripherals are also very good. He had a 3.84 fielder independent pitching, which is pretty much his ERA, taking away all of the luck that can be in factor, which pitchers in Milwaukee usually do a little bit better because fielder independent pitching is one thing, but then pitching when you have a defense like Milwaukee's had the last couple of years, pitchers are usually beneficiaries of that. So I think Nestor Cortez is a really good piece to get back for a Brewers rotation that is definitely going to need someone to give them some innings. They don't know what Brandon Woodruff is going to be able to bring them this upcoming season. And we just talk about this starting five for Milwaukee in their starting rotation. You have your Freddie Peralta, you have Tobias Myers. You're going to try to pitch with Brandon Woodruff. Aaron Savali is going to be there, and Nestor Cortez is probably going to have to be that next guy. And if it weren't for that, you're probably going to see a DL Hall get tried in there, which we saw him a little bit last year. Not a whole lot of success for him. Aaron Ashby, he pitched really good in the bullpen last year, but not very good out of the starting rotation yet in his career. So Nestor Cortez fills a need where I think Devin Williams is pitching in one of Milwaukee's strengths. I think Milwaukee has a really, really solid bullpen, and I don't think they're going to miss him all that much. You can even look at last season, as they had to start the season without Devin Williams for 3/4 of it, essentially, and the bullpen was great. They were incredible. I believe Milwaukee, without Devin Williams last year, had a 48-33 record, 15 games above 500, without a guy who was one of the best closers in baseball. That's due to how good the bullpen is, even without Devin Williams. Next year, you have a couple guys coming in. You didn't see Abner Uribe really at all last year because he got himself in trouble and then he got injured. You haven't seen Jacob Mizorowski yet, who is a top 3 prospect in the Brewers organization, who I think is going to profile to be a high-end reliever right away in the big leagues. You have Craig Yoho, who has a changeup that looked exactly like Devin Williams. Really, like the highlight reel for Craig Yoho is eerily similar to what Devin was able to do as well. And that's talking about guys who didn't even pitch in the Brewers bullpen last year, and a bullpen that looked really good even without Devin Williams. And that's just talking about with Nestor Cortez coming in return. He's going to fill into that starting rotation. He's going to be a good pitcher. He's a fan favorite back in New York. Everybody surrounding baseball kind of knew who he was. He's a mainstay, and he's a guy that's a little bit funky. He's savvy, but he's very technical, and he's someone who I expect Milwaukee to find his true ceiling, the way that they've been able to do with so many pitchers the past couple of years. If you don't pitch well in Milwaukee, it's probably because you're not a good pitcher at this point in your career. What Chris Hook and Jim Henderson and the rest of that pitching coaching staff has been able to do has been incredible. And I think Nestor Cortez could find something that he maybe hasn't seen so far in his career. And that would be a lot to say. But like Nestor Cortez I think just 3 years ago, he was in the Cy Young running as the ace of the New York Yankees. He had a very solid start to his career, where Frankie Montas was pretty similar, where he was really solid and then dealt with injuries and then found his way in Milwaukee. Now Nestor Cortez is going to find his way into Milwaukee, and I have pretty high hopes where he's going to fill into that rotation. And this is even without discussing Caleb Durbin. Caleb Durbin is a minor leaguer. He stands at 5'6", 185. That's what he's listed at. He's going to be 25 years old when spring training comes around. His entire minor league slash line, which is over 1,000 plate appearances, a 269 batting average, a 374 on-base percentage, and a 407 slugging percentage. And that is pretty similar to what we saw out of Sal Frelick out of his outfield position. The way that I would describe how this guy looks coming in, he looks like a Sal Frelick if he was playing infield. Now, Durbin, he's able to play shortstop, third base, second base, or outfield. I expect that they're going to try him at third base right away. I think there's a good possibility that he gets a lot of time in this Brewers lineup, whether it be starting or platooning. I think he fills a need as well. And Milwaukee's going to give him opportunities, him being one of these trade pieces. You're going to have a competition there between Tyler Black, Caleb Durbin, Oliver Dunn, and Andrew Monasterio to see who's going to be A, the third baseman, and B, who's going to be that backup infielder when somebody else needs a day off. And I think Caleb Durbin helps in trying to find that guy, gives them another opportunity to see someone exceed expectations without Willie Adames in that left side of the infield now. So you're filling two needs here for Milwaukee. You're trading away Devin Williams. Yes, I understand. He's one of the best closers in all of baseball, but it was something expected. He wasn't going to be in Milwaukee after next year anyway. And healthy, you're getting 55 to 65 innings out of this guy. Now in return, you're going to get what I'm hoping to be around 170 innings from your starting pitcher and maybe 300 at-bats from an infielder. And I'm going to take that as more valuable than 55 innings from a closer. I think Matt Arnold did a good job here. We'll see how things play out. But right now, as a Brewers fan, I think you have to be pretty happy about this trade. Some unhappy news here coming out of Green Bay. Jair Alexander did not practice today on Friday. He is going to be out for Sunday's game, as well as Javon Bullard. But you will see Edgerrin Cooper as he participated in all three practices. Devin Williams is going to play as well. But this Packers game, I have some concerns about it. And that is essentially due to Seattle having one of the best receiving corps in the NFL. You have three legitimate Pro Bowl receivers in DK Metcalf, Jackson Smith, and Jigba, as well as Tyler Lockett. And I've said this time and time again, Green Bay is really thin at cornerback, and now you're missing Jair Alexander once again. It's going to be a tall task for these guys to be able to cover. I think Green Bay wins this game dependent on how Geno Smith plays. Geno Smith, the quarterback for the Seattle Seahawks. So kind of a big preview for that game, but Green Bay coming in healthier than they were against at least how they ended that game in Detroit. But I think you can be excited about it with Edgerrin Cooper coming back. He's going to step into this linebacker room that has been playing a lot better as of recent, and that being Quay Walker and Isaiah McDuffie. But I have concerns about the defensive backfield, how they're going to be able to cover. Xavier McKinney is going to have to do some pretty special things to keep this Seahawks offense in check. And might I also add that Seattle, they were able to run the ball pretty well last week against Arizona as well. And yes, I understand Arizona really bad at stopping the run regardless, but Seattle can do a lot of different things on offense. Where I think Green Bay stands a chance in this game is where I see the offensive capabilities. As you saw, both Sam and I, our headlines on Monday kind of alluded to this. I think Green Bay is going to hit a ceiling here, or we haven't seen their ceiling is the way that I'll put it. And I believe that you're going to get closer to it as the season moves along, as you did last year. I think this team is going to be on the upcoming, at least on the offensive side of the ball. I think Jordan Love is going to continue to improve, continue to play better. And I think Josh Jacobs, one of the best Packers running backs of all time. I think you throw him in that conversation already. The offensive line's been playing well. Romeo Doubs is going to be playing this week again. So there's a lot of things to be excited about. Luke Musgrave also has been working his way back. I don't know if he's going to be able to play on Sunday, but this team is getting healthier. I think the offense is going to be able to move the ball. Seattle has been playing better defense, but I think Green Bay is I just hope they come out with a game plan. I hope they don't start slow like they have the last couple of weeks. but especially Detroit, where they had just 40 passing yards in the first half. They got to come out with a good game plan. I expect them to, once again, similar to Detroit, I don't think you're going to be able to play in a shootout with these guys. You saw it a little bit last week, both teams in the 30s for Detroit and Green Bay. I think the Packers are going to want to try to stay away from that once again this week because Seattle, they can put points up quickly with that receiving core. And I think Green Bay's main focus is going to be starting on the ground and seeing where things go from there. I expect Josh Jacob to have a heavy workload. So Josh Jacob fantasy owners can rejoice as you're now moving in to your fantasy playoffs for round one. I think it's going to be a tight game, but I'm still going to take Green Bay because I think they're overall the better team. But I do have concerns, and I think this is going to be a close game. The Milwaukee Bucks won their quarterfinal in the NBA Cup earlier this week, 114-109 over a very injured Orlando Magic team. It was a tight game coming down the stretch, but Giannis Antetokounmpo was a monster once again. A couple of clutch shots from Dame Lillard. They find themselves as the only NBA team so far in history to make the NBA Cup semifinals twice. They're back at it again. They'll play the Hawks in the NBA Cup semifinal tomorrow on Saturday. I believe that game is going to be at 3:30, so we'll be watching that for a little bit of cheese. I talked about it with Sam a little bit before. I don't put too much stock into the NBA Cup, but if the Bucks could go out and win it, I think that's a huge momentum builder, and it builds your resume getting into the playoffs, and it builds the resume of a Giannis Antetokounmpo and a Damian Lillard, where they can put that on their career resume. I think it's a cool thing. I think it's almost t-shirt buying worthy for Wisconsin sports fans. Like, hey, if the Bucks go win the NBA Cup, that means Darvin Ham, who's an assistant coach now for the Milwaukee Bucks, he's on the Lakers coaching staff. He's actually the head coach of the Lakers last year when they won the NBA Cup. He would be a two-time NBA Cup champion. And we'll see if that can happen, but they have to take on the Hawks, a Hawks team that has beat them recently, as they'll take them on tomorrow for the NBA Cup semifinal. Wisconsin Badgers basketball in action once again. They'll take on Butler, a 7-3 team, also going on Saturday. So you got a full slate coming up this weekend. We'll go from top to bottom once again, just to recap here before we head into the weekend. The Brewers trading Devin Williams to the New York Yankees in return for Nestor Cortez, a starting pitcher, and Caleb Durbin, a utility man who's going to turn 25. And I profile him as the same offensive caliber as a Sal Frelick, which is not great, but not terrible. Someone you feel okay plugging into your lineup, and you hope that you can find some good defense out of him as well. He's a good on-base percentage guy, which me, an analytical guy, you love to see that. Jair Alexander, Javon Bullard, not going to be playing this week on Sunday. The Packers will be taking on the Seattle Seahawks at Seattle, 7:20 Sunday Night Football. The lights will be bright for that one. I expect a close game, but I do expect Green Bay to take it. The Milwaukee Bucks taking on the Hawks in the NBA Cup semifinal. Should be a good game there once again. The Bucks going to try to avenge their recent loss to Atlanta. And then the Badgers going to try to get a win over Butler. Now 7-3. The Badgers ranked 20th in the nation, going to try to climb back to where they found themselves at 11 earlier this season. My name is Cody Depius. We'll be back on Monday. Sam Douglas, I think we're going to try to get him back on the show. I know he's out in Vegas partying it up. He might actually catch a Bucks game. We'll have to get his insight on that if he's able to. But at the very least, I will be back Monday to help recap all the things going on this weekend, as this has been another edition of A Little Bit of Cheese, your bite-sized Wisconsin sports podcast.